So Keegan, do you want to start off?
Yeah, sure. So I work at the Newark Public Library. I was a library associate, but soon I'm going to be the branch manager of the Vailsburg branch of the public library. Oh,
Congratulations.
yeah. So I lived in China for 2 years, and I've done dumplings before in the past. I love making dumplings, and yeah. So I just hope all y'all can enjoy getting a little dumpling wrapping going on Chinese New Year.
Okay, and my name is Megan Sweet. I'm the Nutrition Education Program Coordinator for Greater Newark Conservancy. So I think many of you, maybe not all of you, but many of you know where we are now if you pick up a dumpling kit. And we'll talk about other programs at the end today, but I want to mention for those of you who got a dumpling kit, if you noticed at the bottom of any of the leafy greens you received, if you notice that it has this stuff on the bottom, that's because we are growing it in our hydroponics system in our greenhouse. And I left that on there because you can actually replant this if you want. You could put it in water and put it in the window. You could put it in soil and try to keep it growing if you want. You don't have to, but that's an option. So I just want to point that out before we get started, before you throw that out.
Awesome.
So, okay. So a couple of Zoom things. So if you'd like, you don't have to, but if you want to turn your video on so we can see you, that would be awesome. If you're able to, depending on your device. So feel free to turn on your video, even though we do have, most of you are on mute, which will help with, background noise, so it's not too overwhelming and crazy, but feel free to turn on your video. And then if you'd like to rename yourself, like I was saying earlier, if you clicked on the link I sent you, I guess it's attached to my name. So what you can do is click on participants on the bottom. All the names will pop up. And then if you mouse over your name, there should be a blue button that says more. You hit that and you can click rename and you can type in your name so that I know who you are, that it's not actually me. So feel free to do that. Mm-hmm. And other than that, like Keegan was saying, please put your questions and comments in the chat because one of us will be monitoring the chat at all times and we can ask your questions that way. And I think that's about it. You can also, one last thing is at the bottom of the screen, if you hit reactions, you can raise your hand that way if you'd like, or if your video's on, you could raise your actual hand. So without further ado, let's get started. So I'm going to take the first part of the program with the cooking of the filling. So everybody should have received either a hard copy or an email with this recipe card. Right, this double-sided card. One side has the recipe for filling. Now, the great thing about dumplings is obviously you can make them a lot of different ways. This is not set in stone. So we gave you one recipe. You don't have to use all of these things. You don't have to use any of these things. You could change it, use different vegetables. You'll notice that for the protein, you could use tofu or you could use any type of meat. So it's really flexible, really versatile. So I'm going to start us off and go over a couple of basic cooking skills because I like to do that for my Family Fun in the Kitchen programs. So first, make sure you wash your hands so you have nice clean hands, right? Yep, so I already did that. And the next thing I want to mention is if you are using tofu, go ahead and set that to drain now. Especially if you haven't really used tofu before, if this is your first time, feel free to ask questions. I'm happy to answer questions about tofu. But what you probably can't totally see in the foreground here, I have my block of tofu and on this plate, and I've been draining it for the past about half hour. I had something heavy on top of it, my firm tofu. So if you're using tofu, it's best to use either firm or extra firm and drain it first. So go ahead and do that if you haven't already. Put something heavy on your tofu, okay? So then the next thing I want to go over is knife skills. So before we cook, we always go over knife skills. So hopefully you can see my hands okay, kind of. I'm going to move my mouse here. All right, so if you have your knife, and if you have kids cooking with you, they can use a knife safely as well. Your child, depending on how old they are, they could use a butter knife, they could use a plastic knife. So there are options even for our youngest children to learn safe knife skills. But whatever kind of knife you're using, we want to hold it with our dominant hand, obviously. So I'm a lefty, I'm going to hold it with my left hand. And you want a nice firm grip, like you're shaking someone's hand, right at the blade. So you don't want to be out at the end because you have less control. So nice firm grip on your knife. And then the best ways to cut are either, either sawing back and forth like this, or the seesaw motion. But either way, you're staying in contact with the cutting board. So sawing or seesawing, like that. So those are the two best cutting motions, keeping it with the cutting board. And then, especially since Nikki and her family are on, if you want to type in the chat, you know what I'm going to ask next. So I know some of you families from Family Fun in the Kitchen, which is great. So the next thing I'm going to ask is, how do you hold the item that you're cutting safely, right? So if I want to cut this scallion and I don't want to cut myself or lose any fingertips, how do I hold this safely? So if anybody wants to type it in the chat, you can. I know Nikki and her family, they usually answer this one. I'm not going to put you on the spot though. So the best way to hold something so that you don't cut yourself is to hold it with a bear claw, right? Oh, Tiffany, so fingers curled in. Yeah, definitely. So if you make a nice, fierce bear claw, right, that way you're protecting your fingertips. Okay? So that's a really quick set of knife skills. The last thing is make sure you always look at what you're cutting and not away. During a cooking program I was looking at the screen while cutting, and I cut myself because I wasn't looking at what I was doing. So that's my final tip, always look at what you're cutting. Seems obvious, but you know. So those are some knife skills. And now let's get cooking. Let's go through the recipe. So the first thing we need to do, if you're following along, is we need to mix our sauces together. So I have already done that. I've got my sauces all mixed. I would recommend getting a small bowl, and you can measure your sauces right into that bowl. So what we need is, what I suggested is, 3 tablespoons of hoisin sauce. Now if you don't have this, this might not be a common pantry item. You can just leave it out, that's okay. But if you have it, you can add your hoisin sauce. Then we're going to need 3 tablespoons of soy sauce. You can measure that in. And then it calls for 2 tablespoons of rice vinegar, if you have it. You could probably use another type of vinegar if you don't have rice vinegar, but that's the best one to use. And then we need a teaspoon of sesame oil. So you can mix all of these together in a bowl and then set that aside, okay? So we've got all of our flavoring sauces ready to go. So the next thing I'm gonna do is get my skillet all ready to cook the tofu. Okay, so make sure you've got a skillet on your stove, and you can use canola oil, or I'm going to use grapeseed oil, but some kind of neutral oil in your skillet for cooking, right? So before we cook the tofu, I'm just going to mention, as you're doing your prep work, if you haven't already, is the recipe also calls for mushrooms. So again, I cheated a little. I already did some prep work and I've already diced my mushrooms. So what I would recommend is, if you have your mushrooms here, slice them up. So I like to slice them and then just go ahead and just chop it roughly. So you don't have to go crazy and make them really small, but definitely chop that up. We also need, if you have it, a can of water chestnuts. So you can find that, you know, at ShopRite, most grocery stores. And what I like to do is I buy the ones that are already pre-diced. You can get water chestnuts that are sliced or diced. So I just get the diced ones, and then that saves a step. So you can go ahead and open your can of water chestnuts and drain the liquid out. So just use the lid to hold the water chestnuts in, drain out the liquid. Let's see what else we got. So then we're also going to need some garlic and some ginger. So I've already chopped some of it up, but I'll show you a couple of tricks. So maybe a lot of you already do this, but just in case you don't, the way I like to peel garlic, I think it's easiest if you take a clove of garlic, put it on your cutting board, and take the flat side of the knife like this and press down on it. So you kind of crush the clove of garlic, and then the peel comes off pretty easily. So the peel basically just falls right off, okay? So I would recommend using anywhere from 2 to 4 cloves of garlic. I tend to use a lot. I think I'm using 4 or 5. Depending on your family's preferences, you could use less if you don't want it to be quite so strong. But you'll see I'm doing this kind of rocking motion with the garlic. Add that to a little bowl. Okay. And then a trick with ginger root. So if you're using fresh ginger root, which I would recommend, now you could use powdered ginger if you have that, right? If you wanted to sprinkle some of that in, but ginger root is really strong and fierce, and there's just nothing quite like it. So ginger root is the best. What I like to do is when I buy a big ginger root from the store, I cut it up into pieces and stick it in the freezer, because I only need a little bit at a time. So I freeze it, and then I just take out a piece at a time for the recipe. And then I find the easiest way to peel ginger root is with a spoon. So basically you just scrape at it with a spoon. Again, I don't know if you can see totally what I'm doing, but you scrape at it and the peel just comes off, right? So that way, if you cut off the peel, you might be losing a lot of the ginger root. So hopefully you're prepping all these ingredients. I know I'm speeding through it a little. But what I'm going to do now is start cooking my tofu, okay? So if you're cooking along with me, go ahead and heat up your oil. And then I've got my block of tofu. Maybe you are using meat, and that's fine. So on the recipe card it said you could use a pound of chicken, pork, beef, or tofu. Okay, so I've got my block of tofu here, right? And what I'm going to do is just cut it into slabs first. And then with my clean hands, I'm going to crumble it into the skillet. So cut it up into pieces first, and then crumble it into the skillet. And it'll kind of emulate a ground meat, right? And the great thing about tofu is that it is a blank slate. It'll just take on whatever flavors you add to it. And if you've drained it, drain the liquid out of it, and then you crumble it up, and you add flavor to it, it'll taste really great. So we're going to cook our tofu for a few minutes, and then we're going to add in the mushrooms, the carrots, and some leafy greens. So for those of you, I'm going to crank it up a little. So for those of you who got a dumpling kit, you should have received baby bok choy. So that's the one with the white stems, right? Super cute. Baby bok choy, some baby tatsoi, and you should have also gotten cilantro and scallions. I don't think, oh, and you also got lettuce, right? So everybody should have gotten lettuce. So that can all just be roughly chopped and thrown in as well. Okay. So while the tofu is cooking, if there are any other ingredients you need to prep, like chopping up the greens or chopping up the scallions, you can go ahead and do that. So I'm going to thinly slice the baby bok choy, stems and all. Okay. So that'll be added in. And I've got my diced mushrooms and got my carrots back here. So with the carrots, you can chop up the carrots, or if you have a grater, you could use a grater to grate the carrots, right? So, tofu's cooking. We're prepping our veggies. Keegan, are there any questions in the chat?
So Sabrina asked if we are using meat. Do you recommend cooking it ahead of wrapping? I answered that I generally do not, although it wouldn't be a deal breaker or ruin the dish to cook it ahead of time.
Oh yeah, that's a good question then. Okay. Okay. So are there any questions about tofu or about any of the other prep work that we're doing? Well, I'll just say, in terms of the tofu, so if you're not familiar with tofu and want to ask any questions about it, I'm happy to answer. At the Conservancy, we generally use vegetarian or vegan recipes. Now, I'm not vegetarian or vegan, I do eat meat, but we try to feature as many vegetarian recipes as possible. And so tofu is a really good option. And at the end of the program, once Keegan and I are done, I'm going to talk a little bit more about our Beds and Breakfast conference, which is next week. And for that, I'll be making another recipe with tofu. So it's not going away. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. So somebody asked in the chat, do we grate the Brussels sprouts? And Keegan's answering it. Shred or grate, yeah. So some of you received Brussels sprouts in your kits, not all of you. It depends on what day you came and what we had available. All right, so I'm gonna add my mushrooms, carrots, and leafy greens now. So I've got my diced mushrooms and carrots and leafy greens.
Megan, Arnold is asking if we should add the Brussels sprouts too.
Yeah. I would say go ahead and add all of your veggies now. Maybe not, so if we're adding cilantro, don't add that yet. Cilantro can be added at the end. But any veggies you're using, right? And so of course you can use And Keegan, you might be able to speak to this better than I, but you can use, I mean, a whole variety of veggies, right? Like if you had parsnips, you could use those, or...
Yeah, there are certain fillings that are more traditionally used in China, but the beauty of dumplings is you could add just about any filling you want, and as long as you can add any filling you want, the dumpling is just meant to hold it together while it cooks together. So I've done a mixed root vegetable one before. I've done this recipe with the mushrooms and tofu. I've done pork and chives. It's very, very flexible. Yeah. Maybe not peanut butter and jelly flexible, but you're free to use whatever filling you want.
All right, so the next thing I'm going to dump in is my garlic and ginger and my water chestnuts. So you could also add some green onion at this juncture. So I'm going to slice a scallion now and add that in. And then the last thing we're going to add in is our sauce. And then the filling will be basically ready to go. And the other thing I want to mention about this filling recipe, so a lot of times I make this filling with the tofu and the mushrooms and the sauces, and I use it to make lettuce wraps. So what I'll do is spoon this filling into like a lettuce cup and eat it as like a lettuce taco. So instead of a dumpling wrapper, if you didn't have those in the future, you could use lettuce. And you could also just eat it like with rice or another kind of grain. So this is also a flexible serving. All right, so now I'm going to add my sauce in. So we just need to let that cook for like 30 seconds, and then that's really it for this filling. And also, if anybody wants to, maybe you're busy cooking, but if you want to put in the chat what recipe you're using, like if you're using different vegetables or if you're using a meat, I'd love to know what you end up putting in your dumplings. So feel free to type that in the chat as well. Okay. And then obviously, since we are cooking this one, what I would suggest as we're moving to Keegan and the wrapping is to transfer this to a bowl, let it cool down a little if we're going to be handling it. So maybe some of you pre-made your filling, at which point it'll be cool. So I see using beef with no carrots or mushrooms, a mixture of pork and beef. That sounds good. Can we freeze this tofu filling? Have I tried freezing it? My instinct is yes. I mean, I love to freeze anything that I have left over that I'm worried I can't eat up right away. I think it would thaw okay. Once it thaws, there might be some liquid in there, but even if there is, I think that would be okay. So my instinct is yes, you could freeze it and then thaw it for later. And then Sabrina says chicken, spinach, and bok choy. So Keegan, can you freeze the skins?
You can. The edges of the skins will start to dry out. I recommend that if you can use them within a few weeks, I would recommend you refrigerate them instead. But if you do need to wait a long time, you can, but just a warning, the edges are going to start getting a little harder and dried out, which you can still, I've been able to wrap them still, but it is a bit more challenging.
That's good to know. And then Mark and Lori said that they're doing half the recipe and half of the Greek-style turkey meatloaf. Oh,
That sounds amazing. I might need to get that recipe.
Yes, we should all share our recipes with each other. Have like a big recipe share. That would be fun. So I've turned my filling off the heat so it can start cooling down. Thanks, Mark. So this is going to start cooling down. I'm going to throw some cilantro in there. Again, you don't have to add that, but I'm just going to throw in some scallions, some cilantro. They don't need to cook. They can just be thrown on top. And I think with that, Keegan, do you want to take over?
Yep, just one more question. How long will these veggies last? I'm not able to cook today, but will they be okay for tomorrow?
Oh yeah, so Tracy, the veggies that you got from the Conservancy, they'll be okay for tomorrow. Yeah, I mean, so cilantro especially, which you would have received, the cilantro doesn't last that long, it only lasts a few days, but I think you picked yours up yesterday, so everything will be fine tomorrow. And you know, what you can always do is with cilantro, lettuce, leafy greens, you can wrap a damp paper towel around the root system before putting it in the fridge, and that helps preserve it better. It helps it stay perkier and fresh. Okay.
All right. Do you want me to take over for a bit?
Yeah, I think we're good over here.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to move this. I'm gonna turn this laptop around so that you can see my hands as I'm working. So, Megan, you're gonna have to be my eyes for this next part. But
Good.
so here we go. Mind the mess. All right, so let's see. How much of this table can I get everyone to see? So I made one dumpling already, and I'm going to have, just for display purposes, I'm going to show you my bowl of water, which I recommend everybody go and get now. Any kind of water, tap, room temperature, but it's going to be necessary for the next part when you're wrapping. I'll just move my skins over here. And my filling is, I did a simple pork and chive dumpling filling with a little bit of ginger, some soy, and sesame oil, and a little bit of egg to help bind it together and keep it moist. So that's what I'm going to be doing in just a second. I'm waiting for everybody who doesn't have one to get just a bowl of water. All right, so I will get started. So ultimately, I'm going to show you how to make this little dumpling here. This is the most basic wrap. This is the most traditional style of wrap. I'm going to show you a bunch of different ways to wrap dumplings too. So if you're not liking how yours come out, or you want to try something new because you're really good and liking it, I'm going to show you about 3 or 4 different ways to wrap a dumpling. All right. So that said, I'm going to show you first, we're going to do the simplest wrapping for a dumpling. So first, you need to get the dumpling in your hand, then take one finger, dip it into the water, and just go around the edge of the dumpling. It doesn't matter which edge, although I usually like the one with less flour on it. And what this is going to do is later on, when we need to seal it, the water and flour is going to make a binding agent that will keep the skins from coming apart. That's the most important part of making a dumpling, making sure that it doesn't fall apart while you're either boiling or steaming or frying it. So once you have that, we're going to take some of this filling and wrap it here. So don't add too much or it'll be difficult for you to wrap the filling or wrap the skin when it comes to this next part. You want just enough to get a nice bite, but not too much that it is not easy to wrap together. All right. So
would you say like 1 spoonful?
yeah, maybe not a spoonful. For this, I had like maybe half a spoonful. I have a largish spoon, so just to show a reference. My spoon's about this big, and I filled about half of it with this filling. You definitely don't want to get a huge scoop of filling.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna re-wet this because it's getting a little dry on the edges. So now I'm gonna show you the easiest way in case you don't want to work on any of these others. So all you're gonna do for this easy way is just put the edges together. And once they're together, you're just going to pinch, pinch, pinch them tight. Make sure that you have enough of this sealed together so that it's ready to pop in the oven. Or not the oven, but whatever you're cooking it in. And yeah, so this is the simplest one here. It's it's not restaurant quality, it's not too pretty, but it will keep the filling in, and again, that is the most important part of making a dumpling. So now, I'm going to show you how to do the more classic style dumpling with your wrapping. So for this one, just like every one of these, you're going to always go around the edge of the dumpling with a bit of water and seal it together. Then you're going to take, again, about like half a spoon or a little more than half of a spoon of the filling. Just make sure that it's enough in there and tamp that down. All right. So then I'm going to put them all together onto one edge. And once more, I'm going to bring them together. But this time I'm kind of curling my fingers a bit. This is more for my aesthetic, but you're going to pretty much start doing the same thing as before, making sure they're all sealed in. And you want the edges to line up too for the skins. So they're all lined up here. So it's a little bent over. Now we're going to start at one end, and I'm going to bring this up here. So I'm going to bring this up here, and we're just going to pinch these together. Oh, this came a little dry. So starting from one end, you're going to pinch them together to make these little creases, almost like, I guess it might look a little bit like an empanada, but you're just going to keep pinching and pinching until you get something that looks more or less like this. Again, pretty much just the basic fold, except now we're adding a little embroidery on the outside. It looks a bit nicer. Nothing crazy though. I'll show you it again, just so you know what it's supposed to look like. So these skins got a little bit dry on me. Like I said, getting dry edges on the skins will make it a little challenging when you're doing some of these pinches around the outside. But again, getting the dumpling in your hand, getting about half a spoonful inside. Bringing the edges. Oh, this one's vexing me.
Hey Keegan, Sabrina wants to know if my wrappers are a little dry, do you recommend using more water?
Um, I wouldn't recommend using more water if they're getting brittle and cracking because if you use too much water, like, if they get too soggy, then they might also not bind. So you can add a little bit more water to make sure it's still coming together, but I would recommend not drowning your skins. And just like that, one more time, like so. And I'll do it a third time before I show you all how to do a different sort of filling, or a different sort of wrap. Now these are the more traditional looking ones because back during the Ming Dynasty, about 500 or 600 years ago, when the dumpling started to look more like its modern incarnation, the the dumpling shape was made looking more like the hard coins that were used in China back in the day. And so one reason why they're eaten a lot during the Chinese New Year or Spring Festival is because they are sort of symbols of wealth because they look like you're eating little bits of money. Once again, bringing the edges together, 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 together. Always needing to make sure that these edges come together and tightly. If you need to pinch them extra hard to make sure that it's a tight seal, do not be afraid. The skins are actually pretty durable since it's all doughy. And then once again, you pinch, 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 and pinch. It'll look a little something like that.
Keegan, can I ask before we do the next type of wrapping? Sharon wants to know, how long should we cook dumplings?
Dumplings you'll want to cook for about 5 to 7 minutes. If you're using a vegetable wrapping, then the work is pretty much already done for you. You're just waiting for these skins to cook, and they cook very, very quickly. But if you're using a meat filling, especially a raw one like I'm doing, you want to make sure that 5 or 7 minutes will get the dumpling skins to cook, but also that the insides are cooked through, especially if you're working with pork and you want to make sure it's fully cooked. But about 5 to 7 minutes per dumpling. They're very quick once you get them started, and that's when you boil them. I find frying cooks a little bit faster if you're going for a deep fried gyoza style.
So you can fry them or you can boil them.
And you can steam them too. I don't have a steamer at my apartment, so I won't be able to show you that. But it's the same basic idea. You just add heat in a way that doesn't damage the skins and make them all dried out. So you can do all of that. I don't recommend putting them in an oven unless, I guess I've never tried putting them in an oven, but I wouldn't recommend it or else they might get very dry.
Yeah, that's what I would think too.
All right. So again, you don't have to do any of these that you don't want to. But I'm going to show everybody a different wrap that looks very different and just might be kind of interesting. So this one, I'm going to do kind of an X box shaped fold. So for this, you start with the same thing, dumplings around, dumpling edges all wetted down and the inside is filled. Then I'm just going to show you on this because it's a little easier. You're going to take opposite ends of the wrapper and bring them together like so. But You're not going to pinch them totally, you're not going to pinch them in just yet. One of these edges you're going to bring up here and pinch that. So the opposite corner you'll pull in, and then you'll do the same thing on this side and pinch them shut. And again, just once you do that, go around the edges, make sure that there are no gaps or holes, and then you end up with a little X box-shaped looking one. So I'll do that a couple more times. For some reason, all my dumpling skins are very, very dry, which is unfortunate. So one more time.
Keegan.
Yeah?
Well, somebody was asking, can we make the cooking person screen the big primary one? So Arnold answered, you can do that by right-clicking and click pin. I don't really want to interrupt Keegan and ask him to do that as a host. He might be able to do that, but yeah, you should be able to do that on your own end. Especially, so besides the pin, which, yes, you can do that if you click on Keegan's box, the 3 dots on the top right, you should be able to hit pin. You could also click the view in the top right and change it from gallery to speaker. And since Keegan's the one talking for the most part, except for me sometimes, you could do speaker view as well. So hopefully that solves it. Because yeah, I know you want to be able to see what Keegan's doing. So let me know if that fixed it for you.
All right, so one more time with the box. So opposite ends, bring them together. Then the sides, pull them in. Pinch, pinch, pinch. Then the other side, pull it in. Pinch, pinch, pinch. And this one came out a little nicer looking.
Keegan, we have another question.
Yes.
So Sharon wants to know, so how can you tell when dumplings are done? And this is probably especially pertinent if you're using a raw meat.
That's a very good question. So you'll know when they get done because you'll see the skins become a little bit more translucent or even milky white when you're cooking them in the water. I'll show you what that looks like when we start cooking, but you will see the skins go from whatever this color is, and they'll get probably a little bit more translucent, and you'll get to see they're still cooking at that time. And when if you're cooking the vegetable filling, that's about when you're done. But for the meat ones, you may want to keep them in until they get, if you want to be extra sure, I leave them in till the edges or the outside gets a little bit lighter or whiter rather than just translucent.
And if you really wanted to be sure, could you stick a meat thermometer in there? I mean, I know you don't want to poke holes in your cute dumplings, but if you had to, you could probably do that for one of them, right?
Yes. You could do that for one of them. Although, as you can imagine, once you put a hole in the dumpling, you'll need to seal it if you're going to cook it again or put it back in the water, because then once you add that hole, the filling could start escaping because the skin will become a little looser and weaker. But you could do that too. I'll do one more of the box one, just so people get a good idea how that one looks. Then I'll move on to another one. So again, edges, then in, pinch, 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 then in, pinch, pinch, pinch. I will admit, I'll say, I'm glad that we got the skins because the pre-made skins because I am not very good at baking or working with dough, so I would not have enjoyed doing all the individual skins from a single loaf, the rolling pin.
Oh, yeah. This would have been a much longer program.
Oh yeah, that one takes a long time. That one we wouldn't have had enough time to do that. All right, so another fold I will show you will look very similar. But instead of a box fold, we are going to do a triangle fold. So once again, same first steps, but now instead of folding from the center, we're going to go a little bit to the off center, pull together, and pinch down to one side here. So you got almost a gyro looking thing going. Again, pinch, pinch, pinch. Always got to pinch. Then, once you're here, you take this edge, you pull it in, and pinch that shut too. And now, you have a little wonton triangle looking one too. And don't worry, I'm going to do that a couple more times too so you can see. Put that on my other thing. There we go. Go around the edges again, then pull. Some pork here. And set it down. Go just off center, so not quite in the middle. Pinch that short to make a little gyro. And then holding this side, pull into the center and complete the triangle.
This is so cool. How's everybody doing? My first triangle did not work, but my second one did.
Nice. Yeah, the dumplings, they take a little bit of time to do. Once you get... The good thing about dumplings is that even though it takes practice to get good at them, since you've got about 30 or 40, you're going to get your practice.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'll do one more of the triangles. And another little piece of trivia, this is a question for people in the audience, but since this is the first, or this is actually the second day of the Chinese New Year, there is a new animal constellation which represents the year. What animal is representing 2021?
Ooh, it's a good question. All right, so Sharon got it first, but a few people said the ox. Yep, very good.
Oh, yes.
Yep, ox, bull, all acceptable answers. Last year was the rat, which unfortunately we got a plague for that one. And this year we've got a bull. So people born under the year of the bull are said to have a stronger work ethic and are more resolute. So people born under that year, this may be an auspicious year to get started on whatever goals you have in mind. If you're feeling like you need a little more push to get through whatever projects or goals you have in mind for the year, this is the year for you to do it. Now, there are 12 different years of the Zodiac. Last year was the rat. This year is the bull. What are the other ones? There are 10 others.
I know there's the rat. I believe there's a dog and then a monkey maybe, but then after that I'm guessing.
Yep, you're right. So the dog and the monkey are both constellations. There are 8 more.
I'm seeing in the chat we've got rabbit,
Yep.
cat, horse, sheep or goat.
Now, cat is interesting because cat is not in the Chinese New Year, but in Vietnam, where there are, I guess, no rabbits from what I've heard, they actually have a year of the cat in Vietnam's Lunar New Year.
Huh. Interesting.
But the horse is there, and so is the ram.
Somebody said the boar.
Yes. That is the last. What was that?
The last one was a boar that they put in the chat.
Excellent.
So which ones are we missing?
You are also missing, there is a rooster. So rooster is one. Snake is another symbol.
Oh, someone put dragon.
Yes, that's one of the big ones. And next year, the last one, was going to be the year of the tiger.
That counts as a cat, right?
Well, if we're going to be, yeah, I suppose. But I wouldn't tell a tiger that. All right, so I'm going to show you one more different style. And this one is really good if you find yourself with too little filling and too many skins. So I'll show you how to make use of more of your skins if you're running a little low on filling. So for this one, we're going to need a little bit less filling. So before we were using about a half spoon, now you may want to use about a third. I guess I did fill mine up a little bit more, but sorry. So for this one, when you go to start, is going to look a lot like the first one. So it's the simple dumpling. So once again, you just put the edges together and you pinch. But now, from here, things get a little different because you'll want the filling to be a bit more vertical than horizontal. And the reason why is because we're going to need to wet our fingers again when we go and pull this edge to the center, wet this, and then we're going to have the other edge, give it a little hug. Pinch it together. You got one of these little bad boys. So this is a great way to use up some more of your skins if you're running low on filling once again. So I'll show you how to do it a couple more times.
So it's kind of like an open envelope, right?
Yes, it looks exactly like an open envelope. So to make the open envelope one, or the ravioli fold, you're gonna, once again, wet the edges, do a little bit less, because it's going to require more skin to come together. Come on. There we go. There we go. Then for this, we do a simple fold all the way around. And then the wings on the outside, it doesn't matter which one you do first, but you'll just bring one into the center, use some water to wet the edge, and then you'll bring the other one to meet it and give it a little hug. And there you go. So Skin around the edges. Fill them up. Simple fold. I may have actually gotten too greedy on this one, but we'll make it work. Edges together. Left. And pinch, or make it hug. All right. Now there are a lot more ways to fold these dumplings, but I only have about 5 of them down. So if anybody wants me to go over different folds again, just let me know. I will do them. Because I like having a bit of different designs for these.
Yeah, it's definitely fun to mix it up, have a variety. Does anybody want to hold up some of your dumplings or hold up your favorite shape, your most successful shape so far? Ooh.
Nice, nice. Ooh, I like that triangle, Lori. Aisha, very nice. Actually, yours look better than mine, honestly. Nice, Megan. Looks good too. Whose am I looking at? Oh, Sabrina. Ooh, yeah, those look pretty good. And I can't see who. There you go. So Miss Owens, the traditional way is the traditional way is either this or the crimped edges one. And again, the reason for that is because this shape would resemble the shape of traditional or ancient coins used in China before paper money was used. So having the dumplings shaped in the crescent shape gives the impression of being having your table full of money, and that is a blessing to give to others during the new year. All right. However, there is another reason why dumplings are often associated with the Spring Festival or Chinese New Year. I'll tell you a little bit about that. So, in China, the Spring Festival or Chinese New Year is the biggest holiday in China. It is greater than it's often said that it has about as much significance to people in China as, say, Christmas would in the US. So it's a time when people meet and come home together to celebrate with the family, spend the new year, see the new year passing, and to celebrate fortunes that they hope will come for the next year. In fact, Spring Festival is often called that because it is the first day of the beginning of spring according to the Chinese Lunar New Year. So it's when the winter is starting and the planting season is going to start, and so people have a little bit of a break between the harvest in autumn and celebrating the end of winter. But the family aspect is important to people in China traditionally, or especially important to modern Chinese now, because many people in China do not work in the same cities where they or their families live. And not just in terms of commuting, but from actually living in cities many times very, very far away. But the New Year is often the only time that some families have to go to their hometown and celebrate and see all their family back home. So where does the dumpling come in from there? So as you can see, dumplings take a little bit of time to make. It's a very involved process. You're making dough, you're rolling, you're cutting little skins out, you're making the filling, you're filling them, and then you're cooking them. And so a lot of time people in the family would get together to do that as a unit, and they would talk and hang out and chat and just do a cooking project and do dozens, if not hundreds of dumplings, depending on the size of the family, so that they're all ready for dinner later in the evening. So dumplings, in many ways, represent a family spending time together to just catch up or cook and make food and all that fun stuff. So dumplings have that extra significance, especially in modern China. And, with everybody stuck inside due to the quarantine, not able to see their families and being separated for months and months, it resonates with me, at least, being able to see people interact with others and feel connection. And that's one thing that dumplings help do in China.
Which is why it's lovely to see all of you, and we're making our dumplings together, even if we're not together.
Yep. The best situation would have been to have had everybody meet together and we all wrap dumplings together, but obviously that's not going to happen for a little while, so we'll make do. Now, I did say that the Spring Festival was a bit like Christmas in the US or in the West, but one of the key differences is that Spring Festival or Chinese New Year is not a single day. It's celebrated here as a single day, but the actual New Year celebrations last over days and weeks, in fact. Often even before the holiday starts, you're celebrating in some way. So one of the ways to get ready is that everyone is expected to clean out their houses so that you can clean away all the bad luck and the badness from the previous year and have your home ready to embrace good luck from the new year. So that all happens before the holiday even begins. But once the Spring Festival starts, it's about 10 days of eating, drinking, socializing, and just seeing family again. And it all ends on the 10th day, which is celebrated with a which is often celebrated in China with red lanterns that are set up all over neighborhoods and towns, and which is why that day is called the Lantern Festival, which is the last day of the new year.
So is that still able to happen this year, despite COVID? Can people put out lanterns and enjoy them from afar?
Yes, you can. Yeah, people in China still set up their lantern, or they're still setting up their lanterns. The public areas still have lanterns. And you certainly can't stop people from looking at a lantern you set outside. But there are, of course, restrictions for public gatherings in China, although less strict because the pandemic isn't hitting China as hard anymore as it is hitting us in the US.
So I just want to be aware of the time in case anybody has to leave, because we are at a little over an hour. So not that we're wrapping up yet, but just in case anybody has to go. I just want to check in and see if anybody has any questions to type in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself, feel free.
If we're done with the wrapping, could we start, if we're pan frying or boiling, can we get that started?
Yes, in fact, I will take some of my dumplings and bring them into my kitchen so I can show you some of how I do it, which honestly, cooking the dumpling is possibly the easiest part of making dumplings. So I set up 2 different workstations. I've got a cast iron wok full with oil, so I'll do a little bit of a pan fry. And then I've got some water set to boil now. And yeah, once you have them ready to go, you can just start popping them in. There we go. So yeah. You can start popping them in and cooking them as they come out if you want. Or if you're still working, you can finish them up and then get all your dumplings cooked in pretty much all together. But you may end up with about 40 dumplings or so, so I don't know if your pot can accommodate all that.
So let me just ask, if you're boiling them, you have to boil them in a pot as opposed to like a layer of water in a skillet. You'd want to use like a deeper pot for that.
You want to submerge the dumplings in a pot.
Okay.
You want to submerge the dumplings when you cook them. If you're going to boil them, you could steam them if you have a steamer, and actually I do like steaming. If you're going to do that though, you should have something underneath the steamer, or underneath the dumpling, between the dumpling and the steamer, because the outside of the skin is still very, very sticky when it gets wet. And so if you just put it directly on the metal of the steamer, it may rip if you try to pull it all up. So, oh yeah, you could fry them. In fact, I'm just letting my skillet heat up now so I can show you. Oh, air frying. I've never tried it. I'm not sure how they cook. Is it convection? Does it heat kind of like an oven?
Yeah, the air fryer is like convection, so it kind of, yes, it heats kind of similar to a traditional oven. Usually, I mean, I haven't tried to make them in it, but I know you can definitely warm them up like in the air fryer after.
Okay, yeah, I've never tried it, so I don't know. I'd be a little worried about them getting too dry and crumbling, but again, I've never tried it, and I've never seen an air fried dumpling in China, so you can try it and let me know.
Yeah, experiment. See how it turns out. And then Tracy put in the chat that she's used coffee filters in the past when steaming. So using a coffee filter as a liner. So that sounds like
a coffee filter for steamer.
Yep, using it as a liner when steaming.
Yeah, actually, a coffee filter would do pretty well. Often, you usually have just a light paper that goes under it, but yeah, a coffee filter would be pretty good. I've even done just shredded, just leaves of cabbage, just putting the cabbage. You just want something that will keep the dumplings from sticking hard to the metal. So if it'll come off, it should come off the coffee filter pretty well. I boil them for about 5 to 7 minutes, just long enough for them to get a bit of a color. If you're cooking with the vegetables, the veggies are already pretty much cooked from the previous steps. But you'll want to cook them such that the skin's all that they get nice and that they cook through. Trying to find the word to describe it.
So keep it at a boil for 5 to 7 minutes.
And some of you may or may not have noticed, but I am choosing today's outfit to be red. So red shirt and red shorts. And the reason is because in Chinese culture, red is an auspicious or good color of good luck. So in and around the Chinese New Year, you'll see red everywhere. There's red. There are red envelopes you give to kids. Red everything. Red decorations. Some people even wear red underwear to carry a little luck with them everywhere. But yeah, red. It's one of the big symbols of the Chinese New Year, as well as fireworks too. I'm still waiting for the oil to finish heating up, but it's getting pretty close. So in a second, I'll show you a little bit of how it'll look.
So, Keegan, Mark and Lori want to know, what do you recommend for sauce?
So sauce, you can do a lot of different kinds of sauce. The most traditional sauces that people use in China are either just straight soy sauce or even a little black vinegar. Although what I like to do is a little bit of soy sauce with either sriracha or some kind of a hot sauce to give it a bit of kick. But even just soy sauce is good enough. That's also why I didn't add any salt to my dish, because the soy sauce is just going to be so salty. You just end up not needing it.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
All right, so I think that my oil is pretty close to good. Or maybe not. Well, it's the first batch anyways. I do apologize too. I am still finishing up a few more dumplings, but I will try and get the first batch started. So anybody who needs to leave ahead of time, they can see how it cooks and what it should look like once it's fully done.
Well, Keegan, while you're doing that, do you mind if I talk about our conference for a minute?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Okay, especially in case anybody does have to leave. So I just want to tell everybody very quickly, you probably received an email from me, but I just want to promote our Beds and Breakfast Conference. It's next weekend. It's next Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So normally our conference would all be in one day on a Saturday. We'd be in person. But this year, because it's virtual, we're spreading it out over the course of a few days so that you don't have to sit in front of your computer all day, because nobody wants to do that. So I can drop a link in the chat, although you probably did receive an email from me. And what it is our gardening conference. This is our 10th annual Beds and Breakfast Conference because it's the end of February, so gardeners are starting to think about spring. It might seem kind of inconceivable with all this snow on the ground outside, but we are starting our seedlings and thinking about spring and thinking about summer and, you know, the upcoming garden season that we're all really excited for. So that's the theme, is gardening. But this year specifically, we have a special theme about gardening for social justice and empowerment. So gardening as a driver of social change. So we have a lot of really great speakers, a lot of great workshops lined up that I think will be really impactful, and you can enjoy it from the comfort of your own home. So check out the link I put in the chat. It's on our website. You can see all of the speakers, all of the workshops. Just to give you a preview though, we'll have workshops on beekeeping and composting. The keynote speaker, Bilal Walker, is going to talk about creative placemaking. We're going to have a panel on community gardens, a panel on farmers markets. I'm doing my Family Fun in the Kitchen program on next Saturday. So I'll be making 2 breakfast recipes. So a lot of great workshops. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, so I hope you can all join, and make sure you register online in advance. And if you have any questions, feel free to unmute and ask, or put in the chat, or email me. And please share with others. Because it's virtual, anybody could attend. So share with anybody in your networks that you think might be interested. Your students, your friends, your family who live out in California, you know, it doesn't matter. Anybody can attend. So Aisha said she'll share. Thank you for sharing.
I don't know if you can hear that, but that sounds like deep frying going on. So for the ones that I'm going to fry, I'm going to leave them in there until they get kind of a golden-y crust to them. Both so that they have enough time to cook, and just because it looks a little prettier.
Thank you, Sabrina, for sharing with your colleagues in Maine. They can definitely tune in as well to our conference.
Excellent. Oh, and just for a point of reference, I'm going to show one of the dumplings to you now. So it's still not done yet, but you can see how getting in the fryer and cooking has already made it expand, such that the folds that I pinched together are getting a little smaller. So that's why you want to make sure that your ends are pinched really, really, really tight so that they don't end up spilling out and coming apart. That's why the most important part isn't about it looking pretty, but about it holding together everything.
Oh, someone's showing a really pretty dumpling.
Ooh, let me see.
Because you're under my name, so I'm not sure who it is.
Ooh, nice.
That looks beautiful.
Ooh, what's that?
Yeah, that looks great. Thank you for showing.
I'm getting a little nervous having showed you how to rap because clearly some people are already a lot better at rapping than I am.
Yeah, Sabrina, those look great. Wow. Well, thank you, Miss Owens, for tuning in.
We're bobbing out. See you, Miss Owens. Thanks for coming.
Oh, it's Nakia, Xavier. Okay. Thank you, guys. Yeah, Keegan, I'm a little nervous about mine. I hope I pinched mine enough as they're boiling so it doesn't all the filling doesn't come out.
What was that?
We'll see.
What was that, Megan?
Oh, I was saying that I'm boiling mine now, so I hope I pinch them enough so the filling doesn't come out.
Oh yeah, I always worry about that. Every time I put dumplings in, I'm just wondering how many am I going to lose to my bad wrapping.
So does anyone have any that are finished yet?
I actually think that I've got a couple that are finished. They just finished up now. I'm gonna turn that off. But
You got one over here that was fried. That's finished up over here.
I feel like we deep fried ours unintentionally.
Right. Well, we're frying with grapeseed.
Yeah.
Grapeseed oil right now.
oh, okay. Yeah, this is how mine came out. I haven't opened it yet, but it's been in there for a little while, so I'm optimistic.
And Arnold says that one of theirs broke while boiling, and that frying was easier.
Oh no. Yeah, frying often ends up being a little easier. I like the flavor of boiled a bit more though, and I feel less guilty about it. But frying does taste so good, and it is easier to fry.
So Aisha asked about recommendations for a dipping sauce, and I think what Keegan was saying was, just your basic soy sauce is good for dipping. And you could add stuff to your soy sauce. So you could add, Keegan was saying sriracha if you want to make it spicy, or you could add some ginger or scallions, some vinegar.
Yeah, vinegar and dumplings go really well together. I recommend it. But use a dark vinegar, not a white wine vinegar. Oh, this goes without saying, obviously, but I hope that they all come out tasting good.
Yeah, hopefully they don't just look good.
Yeah, I've made it before. I like how they taste.
So someone has to go, but they say thank you and this was fun. So I hope your dumplings turned out good. And then Arnold says they taste great.
Excellent. Before we go, I would like to tell you all one thing before you go, just to kind of wrap up the whole culture thing. But there are a few different ways to wish people well for Chinese New Year. But perhaps the most famous one, or the most common one, is to wish them good luck and happiness in the new year, which goes as 恭喜发财. So, for everybody here, especially everyone who has to go now, I wish you all 恭喜发财.
Thank you guys. This was awesome. They look great. It smells great in here. This was awesome. Thank you so much.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
So much fun. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for tuning in.